What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Bros Talking Soccer special interview episode with Will Rivard. My name is Dave Knittel, and we got Will here. Will, hello.
How's it going, Dave?
It's going well, man. Yeah, can't complain. Been running around a little bit. We're getting a little rain out here in California, which is good because we have the wildfires and everything. But yeah, can't complain, man. For everyone who is joining us live on YouTube, hello, welcome. I have the chat feature up here. If you have any questions about anything we are talking about, I'm now realizing you guys can see into my bedroom, so let me turn my camera just a little bit. If you have any questions for us, I have the chat feature up here. I will be happy to relay them. And yeah, I think we're ready to get this interview started. Will, you ready?
I'm good.
All right, cool. I am here with Will Rivard, the creator of Tottenham Hotspur World. Will, welcome back to Bros Talking Soccer. How you doing today?
I'm good, Dave. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for agreeing to come back. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit more, but I know you're from Alabama, and I figured let's start off with our first question from Twitter. Came from @GameDayTourist, Mark Lawson. He basically said, what's the soccer culture kind of like in Alabama?
So it's interesting. So first off, I'm glad he phrased that question, what's the soccer culture like? Because I know Mark's from across the pond. And unfortunately in Alabama, when you hear football, you were thinking either Auburn University or University of Alabama. So he phrased that question perfectly. I know he had a little question about, he was a little worried about that on Twitter. It's real interesting. I grew up in this state. I played soccer all the way up until my sophomore year of college. I played 1 year of college soccer. I was like the third choice keeper. It's interesting. It's real big from the youth levels, but we really don't have anything once you get to college, I guess. If you want to take that aspect of it, I think Birmingham is going to be a USL team, which they should be getting play in the next year or so. And Jay Heaps, who's a former U.S. men's national team player, is actually heading up that project and all that. So that's kind of exciting for that city. As far as that, we don't really have a whole lot of professional soccer. And to be honest, it's tough for me because I'm a big Spurs fan and we're trying to start a supporters group here, but it's been kind of tough. There's only like 4 or 5 of us, and all that. So like, I miss the parts that I see, everybody talking about, like, oh, we've got our supporters group in New York or LA or Philly or whatever. And even overseas, it's huge, obviously in Europe. But I hope the culture's growing here. I mean, it's just tough to say. I guess it's big from a youth standpoint, if that answers that question. I mean, I can go, I'm like you, Dave, I could go into depth on this. But I don't know. I don't want to bore everybody that's tuning in that doesn't care about Alabama.
All right. Well, I'm sure everybody cares and wanted to know. But that's cool and interesting. And you touched on kind of my next question that I wanted to lead into. We're definitely going to talk more about Tottenham Hotspur World, but I wanted to talk more about kind of your soccer fandom and kind of how you got into the sport. And so you touched on you were a goalkeeper growing up. How did you get involved with the sport? What was your playing experiences kind of like? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I think my parents signed me up when I was about 6 years old. And I started out as a defender and I worked my way up to playing forward. And then when I got into like middle school, they were like, you're a big guy, you're athletic. You should try out and play keeper. And so I started playing keeper in middle school and kind of just stuck with it. I played basketball and hockey as well. And so I think some of that kind of played into as far as me transitioning into the keeper position. I love playing keeper, and I'm sure your brother Christian might agree with me on this point because you can see the whole field. You can see everything that happens before it happens. You're kind of in charge of the defenders, and you get to yell a lot. And me, when I played hockey, I like to hit people. So as a goalkeeper, you can kind of clean some people out right and left, real on the sly. So as far as that goes, that's kind of when I was like 6 years old, and I was fortunate enough to play 1 year in college at Spring Hill College in Mobile. But like I told you, I was like the third string keeper. So I mean, I played like, I don't know, in like one match, and I actually dislocated my pinky in warm-ups. My parents came down to watch me play, and I was like, oh hell no, I'm not telling the coach. And so I just played with a dislocated pinky, and we played some terrible school from like Louisiana and killed them. So I mean, I didn't have to do anything in the game anyways. But that's like the only time I got onto the onto the field. And my parents were like, "What's wrong with your hand?" I was like, I busted up in warmups. And they're like, "Why didn't you tell the coach?" I was like, "I haven't played all year. Like you guys came to see me play. Like you drove 5 hours, like." And so that in real brief is my playing career. I got into, I guess, being a fan or supporter of the sport probably when the Premier League, started being on TV all the time in the States, which I imagine is like a lot of Americans. I've always followed the national team. Obviously, I've been to 3 or 4 of their games. I'll always support them, even though we're shit right now, and don't have a coach unless something happens in the next hour. But that's kind of how I got into Spurs because play, kind of as a team, the way they attack, just the whole, I guess, ethos of the team, how they like to build. And I mean, I can keep going on and on that, but that's kind of where.
Yeah, that was my next question. So how did you end up becoming a Spurs fan? Was it just was it like a simple evolution of you watched them, you liked how they played, or was there a specific event or anything like that?
So it's kind of funny. I was listening to the radio the other day, and they were talking about Pulisic, how a lot of people support him, support Dortmund because of him. And I remember when Yedlin went to Spurs, DeAndre Yedlin, and he played in like one match and really didn't make a difference. But to me, I was starting to watch the Premier League, and I'm like, oh, he's going to Spurs. I was like, I've got to find out more about this team. And even though he didn't play, just watching them play and watching Pochettino and just the match against Chelsea last weekend was just like, that's the Spurs I love. We haven't seen enough of them this year, but to watch them press and attack and all the young players, like I think Manchester City is a great team and they've bought a lot of great talent, but Spurs, it's more of an organic thing. Like we're going to develop the talent, like the Harry Kanes, the Dele Allis, Harry Winks even, so I guess that's why I really like them, is just the way they run their club and everything and all that.
Awesome. Well. That's interesting. So the DeAndre Yedlin transfer sort of led you to him. That's cool. I love hearing everybody's kind of backstory into fandom because everybody's got kind of a unique story, especially Americans. Overseas people are generally born into it, but us over here, everybody's got kind of a cool, unique story. So that was awesome to hear. So let's talk a little bit about Tottenham Hotspur World. So, how'd you kind of get it started? What's the background behind it? What was your logic for starting it?
So it's interesting. I started it in January, and my wife and I were talking about Spurs and all this stuff. And, we went to a game a couple of years ago in Nashville, and I was like, oh, man, this is just so cool. I wish I could do more with it. And with my degree from Auburn University, I have a secondary education degree, which is a background in English and a minor in exercise science. So I've done like some writing and stuff like that. I have a little bit of a background in that. And so we were like, maybe I should try a blog and all that. And so when I started it in January, I didn't really have like a focus on, and it's kind of taken on a mind of its own. Like the name of it, the way I explain is the name of it, Tottenham Hotspur World. I try to cover everything in the world of Tottenham, whether it's the under 18 team, the under 23 team, the first team, or the ladies team. I try to focus on all that. And then what I also try to do is bring supporters together from all over the world, whether you're been a Spurs supporter for like 50 years or a long time, or you're in Europe, or if you're like myself and you're an American or someone in Africa, Asia, Australia, all over the world. I try to tailor my writing to everybody, I guess.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you. Is kind of what I'm trying to do. And so it's kind of evolved. Like when I talk to you guys, I don't know, during the World Cup, it was still evolving into, I didn't really have a clear vision for it, but now I think it's kind of taken on a mind of its own,
Yeah, and it's been great. And so, I've been following you pretty much since you started, and we've had you on, in the past. And, I see you on social media, you're almost at 600 followers and, site traffic is growing and all that. How have you done anything in particular to grow those things? Or is it just as simple as kind of seeing which content works and trying to put more out of that? How are you growing?
I think it's just a variety of things. Like I try to engage with, I know we all try to engage with a lot of our followers and stuff, but, I try to engage with them. I try to write different things, like one thing, and I know about this because the Soccer Tavern's been a big piece of it, is doing the footballing terminology, because I don't know about you, but my wife, doesn't know just a whole lot about the Premier League and all that. And I want her to be able to sit there and watch the games with me and stuff on Saturdays and whatever. And when she goes, what does tiki taka mean?
Mm-hmm.
What does he mean when he says 2-foot tackle? What is squeaky bum time? All these kind of terms like that. I thought, and where I am, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the state of Alabama. Okay. Football is played on a gridiron in this state, but I would love for us to have a big supporters club here or something. And that's a pipeline dream. But if we can get people into the game, and that's kind of what you're doing at the Soccer Tavern, I think that's really cool to teach people about the game, kind of give them like, hey, if you want to wake up on Saturday and watch the Premier League, you don't have to be a fan for like a decade. You can just kind of pick it up as you go. So I really enjoyed that part of it. Something I just started a couple of weeks ago is a supporter spotlight, where I'm picking Spurs supporters from all over the world and interviewing them and writing down publishing their answers and stuff. And it's kind of cool. I've got someone from the US, someone from Ireland, and I'm currently interviewing a guy from Ghana right now.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's cool to see everybody's stories for how they became a Spurs supporter. So those two have been successful. I mean, I do match previews. I started something this year called the Great Fullback Debate, because we've got Trippier, Aurier, Rose, Davies, Walker Peters. So just kind of stuff like that, trying to set myself apart, I guess, is what's helped.
How do you find the people from all over the world? Is it mainly social media, like Twitter, or how'd you find the guy from Ireland and Ghana?
Well, it's cool. So the guy from Ireland, James, we actually wrote together for Post to Post Football, which is now Playmakers FC and all that. They kind of went away with the right. I think they're pretty successful, but we both clicked because we're both Spurs supporters and Celtic supporters, and you don't get a lot of carryover on that. And so we've kind of always support each other through our writing. And so when I said I was going to do it, he's like, "Oh man, I'll jump on the chance to be part of that." And I was like, "Oh, it's awesome." And the guy from Ghana, we just found each other on Twitter. We followed each other. He's actually been on the Premier League Fan Zone, that if you get NBC Sports Gold, they interview people from all over the world. And so he's been on there a couple of times. And it's just cool to connect with people from all over the world, or even all over the country, like what we're doing right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. And yeah, everybody should definitely go check out that stuff. What's been your favorite thing that you've gotten to do because of the website, Tottenham Hotspur World? Interview, press credentials, just meeting all the people. What's been your favorite thing?
There's so many things. So I think it's cool to go on podcasts like this one, and Lads, and Top Class Finish, and Soccer Noob interviewed me the other day. So and that interview, I don't know if he's online right now, that's going to be funny, because the questions were, I mean, him, they're just going to be ridiculous, the answers. But it's just kind of connecting with everybody is probably one of the neatest things about the whole thing, because without this, I wouldn't have known 90% of the people that I'm following on Twitter. They're following me and stuff like that. And then just one of the coolest parts for me recently was I did an article about the Spurs ladies team and stuff like that. And I've been tweeting about them, and some of those girls have actually liked the tweets and stuff like that. So it's nerdy, but it's weird that actual professionals are like, "Oh, that's a cool tweet," or whatever.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's so cool to hear. And that kind of touches on maybe the next thing that I wanted to talk about. And you touched on this earlier about your content has, you've had a lot of different interesting content. You've added the youth academies and the Spurs ladies. Do you have a weekly schedule that you try to stick to? Is there certain pieces of content you try to get out for each of the teams? Or is it more just kind of what you're feeling at a given time?
It's a combination of all. What I'll do typically around this time of the week is I'll sit down and look at the weekend schedule. And so I'll look at when everybody plays. So usually on Fridays and Saturdays, the U18s and U23s have been playing on Sundays. And, the first team's kind of all over the place. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So a lot of times, I'll try to do a weekend preview where I preview all the matches, and then I put a link to the match preview for the first team, because I typically go more in depth with them, just because with the other three teams that I cover, it's real hard to get a lot of footage of them playing, between the under 23s and the ladies and the U18s. So sometimes it just depends on how the week sets up. Like this week, it's impossible to get out a ton of content while working a full time job, as far as getting out a match preview for today and Sunday. But like this weekend, like, Kevin from Lads, we're going to go in together and do a preview on the North London Derby because, of course, we're on opposite sides. So sometimes it's just what I'm feeling, but a lot of times I try to have a little bit of structure too.
Awesome. Well, that's cool. That's cool to hear. And so, I mean, let's talk. I mean, we've danced around it a lot, but let's talk about Tottenham's season so far. So, how have you felt about their performance both in the league and the Champions League so far?
It's a mixed bag, I guess. I mean, I'm proud of them because we didn't sign anybody, but at the same time, there's a couple of matches that have defined our season. The loss to Watford is the one that still haunts me to this day. Because if we had 3 more points right now, we would be even further up the table. So that loss, the first match against Inter, and the PSV draw are the only 3 really negative parts of the season so far. But I feel like the team is evolving and growing, with Pochettino as a manager. He's evolving too. He's not the finished product. We're not the finished product so far.
Yeah, and I've been impressed because I thought you started a little bit shaky, but you've really kind of turned things on. That the result against Chelsea, and then earlier today, beating Inter and climbing back up into second. I know you got a tough run of going to Barcelona, and that may be tough, but still, I mean, I think I didn't. I predicted, I think, Spurs to finish 4th before the season started. And, you guys are up there in 3rd ahead of Chelsea. And so the reason I did that was more because of I was concerned about the depth. But, I mean, you guys have been very resilient, and, Poch is doing an excellent job. So, I've been impressed with how Spurs' team has performed so far. Let's talk. I'm trying to think of which one I want to go to next. Let's talk about this first. So Spurs has had a really interesting sort of stadium situation this year where they were supposed to kind of move into a new stadium, and that has been delayed and continues to be delayed. What's your perspective on that whole situation?
I think my perspective is I'm not really surprised. I mean, I know when you're building structures like a massive stadium like that, I think the club could have done better and been more realistic and said, hey, look, from the get-go, we're not going to be in this stadium when we play Liverpool in September. Let's just be real. Let's look at 2019, so it's disappointing. Now for me, we're in the US, so I can't go to matches anyways. So it doesn't affect me as much from that standpoint. Now, as far as the team goes, I think maybe it affects them a little bit, but they look very comfortable at Wembley this year. They look great today, looked great against Chelsea. I think for them, it doesn't affect them as much, but for the rest of for Spurs supporters about and argue about. And if you like Daniel Levy, you can slate him for this. I mean, if you don't like him, you can slate him for this. If you like him, you can defend him. I'm in the middle on Daniel Levy. I think he's done a lot for the club. I'm just patient. When we get in, we'll get in. It'll be excellent, but there's nothing we can do to control that outcome.
Yeah, and so you haven't been because I know they've been playing NFL games, and I think they're finally done playing NFL games over there. So hopefully they're done tearing up the pitch, and they can get things sort of corrected, because it didn't look great again today. But hopefully, they can. I don't know, the grounds people can get that fixed, and because that was kind of the biggest issue for me was that. I don't know. Did you have a perspective on that with the NFL teams tearing up the field and kind of ruining it for Tottenham?
Yeah, I think that's the only bad part about it is when they did all this, they expected to be in the new stadium, so they weren't worried about the NFL, or like I think there was a boxing match there a couple weeks ago and stuff. Now, maybe if you talk to a soccer or football purist, they would say, hey, back 20, 30 years ago, we played on terrible pitches that were waterlogged, mudlogged, whatever. So, they can get over it and play on it. I think it's fortunate that no one's gotten injured on that. I think that's one of the big issues you look at when a pitch is, or a field, whatever, is that torn up. But I think it's been fine. The City game, it was definitely a little rough, and it affected both teams. Nobody's gaining an advantage on that unless you're Maybe Mourinho going out there and you're just going to park the bus anyways. And if the pitch is chewed up, that's even better.
Yeah, we have to get, I think, one Mourinho shot per episode. So thank you for hitting the quota there. Last Spurs related question here. I'm going to ask you to look into the future a little bit, whether that's short-term future or long-term future. Do you think Pochettino stays and is able to keep this team together? So let me ask that question first, then I'll have a follow-up question. So do you think he's there for the long haul, or do you think he'll be tempted by another team?
I feel like he's there for the long haul, but again, I think I'll phrase it this way. It all depends on if he gets what he wants for market. We didn't sign anybody this summer. I have to feel he had to want at least one player, you know? So let's say the rest of the season finishes out and we don't meet expectations. We don't win a trophy. We barely finish top 4. I couldn't blame him for wanting to leave at that point, but let's say Daniel Levy goes out in January or this summer and buys him a player or two. I could see him staying. At the same time, though, we're locking up players. Dele Alli just signed a new deal. Kane signed a new deal. I think if we get Christian Eriksen and maybe we get Toby or some of the other guys to stick on, why would you leave? Because you've got a solid core there.
And that was going to be my follow-up question. Do you think, I know they're all signing long-term contracts, but if the stadium situation, like, you know, I'm just trying to, I don't know if devil's advocate is even the right word, but trying to think about how all of this plays out, because, you know, we heard they took on 200 million, I think, additional debt to finance the stadium. Do you think they're going to be able to keep that core just with all of those? Or are they going to have to sell a couple players? I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it's natural that some players will move on. Like Toby or Jan, but it's natural that one of them moves on just because of the other players we have. Davinson Sanchez, excellent player. Foyt, he's played a little bit. I think he'll get better with time. He's gotten better.
Giving penalties away.
Yeah, if he stops giving penalties away. So it's only natural we're going to lose some players. You know, we lost Kyle Walker last year. That may have been a mutual thing. I don't know. But as far as the salary structure goes, I don't know. You know, I think you'd have to be one of their finance guys to really figure that out. But I do think it's a domino effect. If Poch leaves, it's real easy for Harry Kane and Dele and all of them who probably look at him as more of a father figure and a coach to say, hey, if he's gone, if he doesn't think he can win here, why can we win here? You know, and that's playing devil's advocate. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I agree. And I honestly, I think, and at this point, I mean, I hope he stays. I'm not a Spurs supporter. I'm a Liverpool supporter. But I kind of want him to stay to see what he can truly build for this club in that new stadium. And so I really think I want him to stay, and I don't see him going anywhere else. I mean, the Real Madrid job is, I don't know who would want that. I know people are, you know, he's being rumored for that, but I don't know why he would leave the situation he's in now to go to that. And I can't see him moving to another Premier League club. And from that, I don't know where else he would be. He's already said he's never going to manage at Barcelona because of his Espanyol connections. And so I think he may be there for the long haul. And I'm excited to see how all of that plays out, him continuing to develop. You have Jurgen Klopp. Guardiola seems to be there for the long haul. You know, I love seeing all those managers, and, we'll see how it all plays out. Let's get back to your website, Tottenham Hotspur World. You know, what does the future hold for you? Any exciting, projects coming up? Any new things that you're working on outside of the interviews, or maybe you have some more interviews lined up?
Well, I don't have a ton of things in the works right now. A lot of people are asking me about doing a podcast, and I think everyone's podcast I've been on has been phenomenal, and I know everybody makes it look really easy, but I know there's got to be a lot of work that goes into it. So like, I'm going to stick to the writing for now and just appearing as a guest on podcasts because that's pretty fun. As far as big projects, one of the big things like we just talked about was the supporter spotlight series. I'm going to finish up the terminology series, probably in one more article. So I will look to do something else beyond that. The other thing that's kind of cool that should be coming out soon is everybody knows JS from Football in the City. I'm actually going to collaborate with him and write some articles for his site, and then he's going to actually write some articles for Tottenham Hotspur World, and there'll be more of historical pieces talking about, club icons and greats and stuff like that. So that's something we've discussed in the last week or so. And so we're going to kind of be doing that. And it'll be neat for me to write for his site because it won't all be Spurs related. Like we're going to focus on US soccer and kind of the good, bad, and ugly and maybe just deeper stuff into the game. But that's kind of the big stuff that's on the horizon, I guess.
Awesome. And you kind of, so I cut this question, but since you kind of just brought it up there, I'm going to ask it. The fact that you focus solely on Spurs, does that ever feel constricting for you? Like if you wanted to write about US soccer or whatnot, like, do you ever feel, I don't know, restricted in any way because of, you focus solely on Spurs, or are you happy with everything the way that it is?
That's a little bit of both. One of the cool things when I was writing for Post to Post Football is I could write on a litany of topics. I wrote on VAR. I wrote on Timothy Weah before he, when he first got called up and stuff. So it's a nice break sometime. But at the same time, as what I write for Spurs, it's whether it's the first team or the U18s, U23s, or the ladies, it's all like writing on different teams at that point, because each of them kind of have their own players, their own strengths, their own leagues and stuff like that. So it's kind of a best of both worlds, but it will be cool to kind of sit down and talk about US soccer. And I mean, we as Americans, we have a lot of feelings on that right now with everything that's going on. So that'll be kind of neat to take a deep dive into that and just rip that Band-Aid off and figure out what's going on.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure whenever you write it, we'll be sharing on social media and promoting the heck out of that. So that's awesome. So before I ask my final question, is there anything else that you'd like to plug, or any questions or anything like that before I ask my final question?
I mean, I don't have anything to plug right now. I'd love to have some merchandise, but we're not to that level yet. I don't have a cool enough beard anyways to put on a t-shirt. So we're good right now on that.
All right. So my final question is, we try to keep things positive here, a lot of negativity in the world. What's the thing you're most excited about happening in the soccer world right now? You can take it however you want to take that question. But yeah, what are you excited about, or the thing you're most positive about?
So I've actually been thinking on this for a couple of days because I listened to one of the other interviews, and there's so many things. I'll take it from an American standpoint. I've never been a big MLS supporter or fan, but this is probably the first year I've actually watched the MLS, and I'm like, wow, the quality of play is really good. It's improving from where it's been. Like I actually on Sundays, I'm like, oh man, I want to watch MLS. I'm not just like having it on while I'm doing other things. So I guess from an American standpoint, it's great that our domestic league is growing up a little bit. It's not there, but it's getting there. From a Spurs standpoint, it's just kind of cool. The newest thing right now is following all the other teams that isn't the first team. I'm really happy with the way the first team's doing, but we have two other teams, the U18s and the ladies, are both at the top of the table in their respective leagues, and they are just playing awesome. The U18s have not lost a game yet. They're undefeated, all competitions. Well, I mean, they lost the under 19, which is like a development team. They lost today to Inter Milan in the UEFA Youth League, which is the Youth Champions League, but the pure U18 team is not lost. The ladies, it's kind of cool. They're in front of Manchester United in the Women's Championship, which I know you guys talked about this on a different podcast. The amount of players and stuff they brought in, and the way they're just rolling teams, it's cool to be in front of it, for them to be in front of a team like that and having that kind of success. So those are kind of my big things that I think are positive in the soccer world right now.
That's awesome. I love those answers. So that is great stuff. I will do this in my pre-roll, but we haven't said this so far. So can you tell people where to find you on social media and your website, please?
Yes. If you guys want to find me on Twitter, I am at World Hotspur. And on my website is Tottenham Hotspur World. If you guys want to interact, whatever, that's where you can find me.
Yeah, so that you broke up a little bit, but it was Tottenham Hotspur World. We have it linked in the video description and podcast show notes. So everybody, please go check that out. Again, it's awesome stuff it's heavy Spurs, but even the terminology stuff, it's for all soccer fans. So you definitely want to go check it out. Will, thank you so much for being here and talking with me today.
All right. Appreciate having me on, Dave.
All right. Have a good one. Listeners, thank you for being here. We'll talk to you soon. Say, everybody. All right, cool. People who have come and gone on YouTube, thanks for checking us out. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon. See you, everybody.